balance maintaining a really high leadership, being great at it, and then I'm supposed to be this great mom and be like superwoman. I had two phenomenal mentors in my early career, both female, both very, very diverse, and they kind of helped me navigate through that. And really, it's like what everything that everybody else has already said, be yourself, but speak up, tell people what you expect. And you have to stand your ground. I learned really quick that I need to be able to have a work-life balance. Left that industry after about 11 or 12 years and ran into the men world, as I call it, the good old boy clubs. And had to figure out, they don't understand me. They don't understand why I want to be at home with my children, but I also still want to be a really great leader. And so I just had to learn to get out of my comfort zone and tell them, this is the way it's going to be. I need this flexibility, and if that's not going to work within your organization, then this isn't the right fit for me. So you have to be true to yourself. You have to stand up for yourself, and you have to set the expectation. You have to voice what you want, or you will get passed over. I think Lauren stated that in her story, and it's so true. If she hadn't have spoken up, they wouldn't have. They would have said, this female's not going to move. She has children. By no fault, that's just the way the world works. So then I moved here to Market Source. Luckily, was brought in by Ben Sims, who I worked with in the previous heavily female-presented industry. And he brought me in here, and definitely it opened my eyes up all over again. But by that time in my career, before even coming on, I said, if I don't have this flexibility and added on a commute, I can't do this. And he said, we can match that, but you're going to have to come in and you're going to have to, prove yourself. And so that's what I did. That was the challenge that was presented to me. And if you're going to give me a challenge, I'm going to overcome it. I'm going to meet it. So I came in here and worked my tail off, and started being seen by people, networking, getting out of my comfort zone. I too went to lunch with Damon, which I thought was the craziest, scariest thing when they first told me you should do that. I'm like, he don't want to go to lunch with me. What? But it was the greatest experience that I did that, because it got me out of my comfort zone, but also had me telling him, this is where I want to be. This is how can I get there. And also with that challenge being presented to me, I too got a new client service director. That seems to happen a lot. And he was much more good old boy style, did not see that flexibility, and he told me, you earn it, then I'll give it to you. And so step up to the challenges, I guess, is what my piece of advice is. Always stand to your truth, but really let people know what you want, or you're not going to get there. That's actually short.
Everything they said. I'm Chandra Midget. I am a program director in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm very grateful to be here on this phenomenal panel of women. We've all had our own share of challenges, and you guys have had your share of challenges too. As I was sitting here thinking, what could I say that was different? I looked on the panel, and of course, it's just obvious. I am an African American female, and so I found myself in that particular scenario a lot, where I'm the only black girl, if we can say that. And so it brought me back to a situation when I was young. I'm from a very small town with chickens and pigs, and no, literally. In my backyard, there's a meat farm, right across the street. It has the best bacon you could ever think of. I drive for miles and miles, to come to the meat farm. It's not, my city is not even on the map. It's called Acre Station. If you Google it, you won't find it. But that's where I'm from. So it's a little town of family, right? So it's my family and cousins and aunties and uncles, and then it was another family of Caucasians, and it was like a line between they were over here and we were over here, but we went to school together. And so one day we're playing outside, and someone called me a name, and I had never been called that name before, and I'm not gonna say that name. And I went home, and I said to my mom, and I started crying, and she was like, what's wrong? And I said, Mama, this voice just said I was black. And she said, you are black. Look at me. And I cried because I didn't know color. I didn't know color. I didn't know I was black until someone told me I was black. We just all played on the playground together. We all, ate lunch together. We all went, to recess together. We all did our homework. We all cheated on our paper together. We did everything together, And so I didn't know I was black until my mom said, I'm not black. And she said, I'm going to the school, and this is how she said it. I'm going to the school and I'm gonna let everybody know. Yes, you are. And I said, Mama, don't go to the school. And so that was the first moment that I realized I was black. It wasn't on my birth certificate. We didn't know color, And so what that did for me is it made me always look around to say, I'm that black girl. Right? And so what it did also was it fueled me to be different. So what that I'm black? So what I'm an African American woman, I still am smart. I still can, do successful things. I still can, that shouldn't separate. So that was an eye opener for me. But I find myself a lot in that situation where I am the only female, but not only the only female, but African American at that. So that I decided to not allow that to be a barrier, right? Not allow that to overtake me with fear and grip me with, the thought that I can't do what my next person can do. I'm not as important, or I'm not valued because of the color of my skin. Right? And so I began to think about, overcoming barriers, and I was like, that's typical. We all have barriers where it comes to race and gender, or, our beliefs. Those are very typical barriers that we have to overcome. But I began to think about other barriers that, we don't talk about. It's obvious to talk about I'm black. You can tell that, right? Or that we're females, you can tell that. But other barriers that we don't talk about is the barriers of the fear and the pain of rejection, right? You don't take that role because of the fear that you might not get the job. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, or whatever your preferences are. It's more of overcoming the barrier of being rejected. So you don't think you can do it because of what, like Lauren said, that voice in your head. But, it's far beyond the color of your skin. It's about what you think about yourself. It's about, how you project yourself, right? And like the fear of actually winning. So it wasn't, of the fear of losing. It was the fear of, what if this thing works? What if I actually get the job? The fear of the responsibilities in this new role. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I have, the actual fear of what if this thing actually worked out. So it's beyond, the color of my skin. It was, now that I'm here, what am I gonna do now? That fear of what's next, right? Anybody ever been there, right? And then like the fear of, and the guilt of investing time in yourself. The guilt that women have a lot of times, where, you don't want to invest in yourself, or you're afraid to invest in yourself because you have other responsibilities and things like that. And so that was the greater barriers that I had to overcome than the color of my skin. I overcame that in kindergarten when my mom said I was black. So that was not my excuse, nor was it the fact that I was a female, because, that was just not my issue, but my issue was me. My issue was really me, and I was holding myself back. I can't blame my manager for me not getting the promotion. I can't blame, Marcus Soares or anything for why I'm where I am. The only person I really can look at is myself and say, what was I doing on Saturday? I was, binge watching Netflix when I could have been spending that time. Because, we say, I don't have time. You do. You really do. It's what you're doing with your time. So if I could leave you with anything, I did like an assessment of just how do I spend my time, because that was the excuse that I wanted to say, right? I don't have enough time. And so then I did, my mentor was like, do a calendar and write down everything you do in a day, and you can find 2 hours. And when I looked at what I was spending time in, TV, internet, on on the phone, God's been shopping, you know, gotta have manis and petties, you know. You have to, you know, and so what I realize is you have time. If you can, ladies, we schedule time for our hair, we schedule time for our pedicures, our manicures. You know, we schedule those things that mean important to us, so we have to schedule time to invest in ourselves. So I believe you in anything.
So thank you for your stories and sharing. There are a couple of things that I jotted down that were themes that I kept hearing over and over again. One of those was speak up. Ask for what you want. Make what you want known to other people. Take initiative. Work hard. Be yourself. Find your tribe and love them hard. Is that what it is? Love them hard. I love that. So, you know, your network. Who are the people who can support you? Having confidence and then investing in yourself. So I have a question because I kept hearing over and over again, be authentic, be yourself. And for women, especially in a male-dominated industry, how do you stay true to yourself when there's this pull to conform to what you think everyone else is like, or to be more male-focused, or to change in ways that are less feminine or maybe less true to who you are? How do you stay true to yourself in that and still present yourself in a way that you're taken serious, that you're listened to, that you're seen as a professional and a leader?
I would say you need to know who you are, right? You need to know who you are and what are your core values. There are things that I'm not gonna do because it doesn't align with my core values, and that's not who I am. So I can be authentic because I know who I am, and I'm not trying to be anybody else. But there was a time in my life when I was trying to find me, and so, you know, I was looking at this one and that one and saying, okay, I need to do this or I need to do that, and I wasn't really being that authentic person, right? So I had to find who I was, and once you recognize and set those core values, then you can sit at the table and not have to cuss when other people cuss at the, you know, in a meeting, or do things that doesn't align with your core values.
So I think you just have to have that confidence. And I think this might not be the politically correct way to say it, but you got to use some of those things to your advantage. I mean, you're sitting up there and fighting up against the male world. Use your advantages of the female. I mean, they need us females and our knowledge and our intelligence. We perceive things so differently than they do, and that brings something to the table. You need to be proud of that. You need to own that. You need to speak up and share that, because they too actually will learn. And in a business, you need all perceptions in order to be successful.
Well, and remember, you can't control what another person thinks or how they receive what it is that you say or do. You know, if you are steadfast and grounded in whatever that is, and it's true to you, you know, we keep kind of going back to that, right? If it's true to you and who you are and your values, and you know, it's one of your non-negotiables, or it's something that you feel really strongly about, speak it. And if you're speaking it in a way that's diplomatic and not offensive, whatever, if they receive it poorly, that's on them. That's not on you, you know? And I think that's something that, like earlier on in your career and in life in general, because you can learn that, it is so freeing once you finally kind of get hold of it, you know? So don't sweat that. Let go of the likability factor. I think that's another thing that a lot of women struggle with, and I know it's something at times that I've struggled with too. You know, you want to be liked. It's important to be liked. Not everybody's going to like you. That really has nothing to do with whether you're a woman or not. If they don't like you because you're a woman, then that's on them too. There's a deeper issue there. If they don't like you because of the way you look, that's on them. But worry less about the likability and more about the substance and staying true to who you are.
Thank you. We have some questions that were submitted, and we're going to go through. Ariel, you have a question? Do you read yours?
Hi, I'm Ariel Milton. I work with the Employee Support Group. And my question is, how do you overcome perceived limitations placed on you by your gender without falling into the trap of reinforcing the stereotype? And just as a little context, a gentleman says something, it's assertive, and a lady says something, it's aggressive.
I'll take that one. Oh, goodness me. So, I think a couple things. One, I'm gonna go back to that building a relationship and trust, right? And you do have to read the room, right? Let's just be honest, you have to read the room and know who's in there and know kind of what you can say and what you can't say. But if you're prepared, right, and you've done your homework as well as you have relationships in the room, and I'm not saying with everybody, right? Because there's no way you can have great relationships with everybody. But if you have some allies in the room who know you and who support you and the time is right, you've got to take that leap of faith, right? But you have to be respectful, you should do it in the right way, and all of that type of thing. The other thing is that, again, in the spirit of open communication, my hope would be, right, if regardless of who said it, man or woman, if something came off wrong in the room, that it's addressed, you know, outside of that room in a different conversation that allows you, one, you may have to get feedback in here, right, that it came off the way that you didn't want it to come, or basically you can give some context to that individual, right, and say, well, this is why I said this, you know, I was frustrated, or I felt like that point needed to be made in the room, and that type of thing. So, but you've got to read the room and make sure that you kind of have those allies and trust in order to, you know, that kind of be a safe place, would be mine. Yeah, well said.
Does anyone want to add to that?
I think what Elizabeth said earlier about, it's okay to be me, right? So using the fact that I am a woman, I don't have to sound like a man. I don't have to, if you bark, I don't have to bark back. Or if you raise your voice, I don't have to raise my voice back. I can stay who I am in the room. I can be the thermostat and control the temperature, you know, of the room just by being myself. So I just look for ways to just be me. You know, I don't have to be like the rest of the, you know, other men.
Yeah, I think of the term, just, again, I keep saying it, but own it. Own who you are. Own what you think is, you know, what needs to be said. You have to be able to back it up, but you gotta own it.
I think there are a couple of things that were said that are really key here, and one of those is having advocates and having people that support you, and that comes through relationships and building a network, building a strategic network of people. So, you know, if you don't have those people that are not the folks that you eat lunch with because you guys have common things in life, right? There are people who are different than you. There are people who are in different departments. If you don't have that, I would encourage you to start building that, because those are the people that are going to speak up for you when you're not in the room.
Exactly right.
Those are the people that are going to call your name out when there are opportunities. When other people are being mentioned, they will say, oh, have you thought about this person? And they will support you when you're talking.
And we could probably each name 2 or 3 on the top of our head that do that for us consistently and have. I mean, that's so important. Absolutely. And they will dispel that myth that somebody might put out about you, you know, that, oh, she's really aggressive because she spoke up and spoke her mind. And that person's the, you know, like you said, the one that's gonna say, actually, I think she had a really good point, and I would have put it exactly the same way she did. I mean, I've had that happen before. And you need those allies, you need those people. Yeah, seek them out. They're there, and they want to do that. You know, we have plenty of men in this organization who want to be allies and supporters. I mean, we've got men here in the room with us today. You're here, I'm assuming, because you feel strongly about that too. Don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah, and another great point that you all have brought up is that if you speak, be intentional. Don't just speak to hear yourself. Make sure that what you have to say is bringing value to the conversation, so that you can back up whatever your opinion is in an eloquent way.
And really quick, I just want to add something on the ally part, if I could. You know, be creative, right? When you're basically starting those conversations, right, with people. It doesn't always have to be about sports when you're talking to a guy. It really doesn't.
Thank you.
It can be, right? And I mean, I'm lucky I have 2 sons. I love sports. So
you know what I mean? I can hang with the conversation pretty well in that area, because ESPN's on in my house a lot. But be creative. You'd be surprised that, you know, whether it's kids or cooking or what places do you like to go out to eat, all of that type of thing. Be creative when you're having those conversations. It doesn't just always have to be about sports, because really, they don't want to talk about sports all the time either. You know what I mean? There's other things that you'd be surprised that you could have in common with people around hobbies or interest or all of that type of thing. So ask those questions and find those out. Because again, that's a great start, right, to those conversations, or when you go to that table, right, of all of those guys, to figure out kind of what they're talking about. So, sorry.
That's so important. It's funny, I was telling Eva this morning, I had a meeting with Tim Brannon, and we were talking and found out that we both grew up in Oxon Hill, Maryland.
Wow.
Yes. I know, a small world, and we both live in Alpharetta, Georgia now. But, you know, find those commonalities and those things that you can connect with people on a personal level, because those personal relationships are the ones that grow into the ones that impact your professional. So we have another question. Is Jamie in the room?
I'm Jamie McCauley. I'm on the HP commercial program. And my question for the panel was, what do you do to help uplift women around you in the workplace? And what do you suggest others can do?
Somebody that I'm not talking about.
You know, as, you know, people are being advocates for you, who are you advocating for? You know, find someone that you can help. You know, tell your story. It doesn't have to be in a big forum. It could be just grabbing lunch with someone, you know, especially someone that just started, you know, tell them the mistakes you made. You know, I think we can shine the light on all the things that helped us get where we were, that, you know, were the good things, but how about being honest about the mistakes that we made, or the things that we didn't do right, in hopes that someone will not make those mistakes. So I would say, you know, be an advocate and just listen.
Yeah, I think also right judgment, right? Give people grace, and just make sure that basically, hey, you haven't walked in their shoes. You don't understand the day they've had, the morning they've had, all of that type of thing. So give that grace, and then be curious, right? Ask questions, and it's the small things, right? It's texting someone, hey, you did a great job in that meeting, or heard your kid was sick, how are they doing this afternoon? All of those types of things just make people know that you care, but could put an extra little step in their step for the day. You know what I mean? Just saying, hey, I realize you had a crappy morning. You know what I mean? How's it going this afternoon? Or what can I help with? Or all of that type of thing. And I think that just, you know, uplifts people and you know, makes them feel good.
Actually care about them and talk to them.
Learn to, or just start by introducing yourself. I mean, we have a lot of people that work here, and I mean, I see a lot of faces that I recognize, but I don't know your names, and I, you know, try to make sure that I ask, you know, hey, I'm Lauren, what's your name? Compliment them. I mean, who doesn't love a compliment? Like, any kind of icebreaker like that is always good, and I personally, I'm kind of, you know, I kind of have an open door policy. If you know, Julie kind of came to me, actually that was pointed at her, but, you know, Julie came to me and was like, oh, can I sit down and talk to you? And I was like, absolutely. And she was like, this is a, you know, I'm kind of feeling nervous about asking. I was like, oh my God, please ask me. I'm happy to do it. If we don't, who's going to? I feel a responsibility to do that, and I'm happy to do it always. So, open door.
Yeah. Other things to do is, you know, if you're in a meeting and someone's not speaking, maybe this person doesn't have as much confidence, ask them what they think. They may not speak up, they may not have the confidence that you have. Invite them to things that they wouldn't normally get invited to. Share information with them. And I will say this for pretty much all the women leaders that I have encountered in this company. Ask for time. They are so busy. Lauren said this, but they are so busy. They're not going to come and seek out people to mentor, but it doesn't mean you can't call them. And they have always been very open, in my experience, to sharing their story, to giving advice, to mentoring. buy a cup of coffee. Anything that you can do to get connected with them, and I would encourage you all after this to look for women that you see that could be a mentor, that you just, something about them, that you just want to get to know them more, and ask for time. Great, thank you.
I'm always really disappointed when somebody says, I know you're really busy and I know you probably don't have time for this, and I think, I'll always make time to pay forward what's been done for me. I mean, that's what this,
Absolutely.
that's really, you know,
That's how we
the
got here.
experience that we've all shared in Women in Leadership has been really fantastic. And the one thing that we absolutely share as a result of it is the feeling that we want to pay it forward. So don't let the voice in your head tell you that we're too busy.
And that
We'll
piece-
make time.
That's what makes our day. Like that
Oh, gosh,
piece, that's what makes our
totally.
day. Versus staring at your screen or trying to get the report done or whatever it is. Like that's just human interaction and someone actually coming to you. Like we love that. We live for that. So
And we get way more out of it than you
think-
guys do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gregory.
Hello. My name is Greg Weinstein. I'm with the Exalted Codings program. Thank you all for coming out today for the panel. It's been very enlightening. Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you.
I'm glad I get to follow behind Jamie because that was an awesome question and it kind of goes into the same element here. How do you set a positive example for the women that aspire to be the next leaders, caregivers, and independent thinkers?
Yeah, it's like, I hope I don't screw up every day.
I'm gonna walk around with
like,
medicine on
ooh,
teeth.
yeah, with my
I think it's the reinforcement piece, honestly. Like if you're in a meeting and you see like someone new and they're leading it for the first time, going up to that individual and saying, "Hey, you did a great job. You know, keep it up. Did you enjoy it? You know, things like that." I think it's just reaching out to people. You can see people in a hallway if you know that they look terrible and be like, "Are you okay?" And they may share, they may not, but it's just reading that kind of the room, the interactions that you have with individuals, and then going from there. I mean, making that connection with people. That's what I try to do.
I mean, I think kind of one of my stakes in the ground is the working mom thing and the work-life balance. So I do feel a big obligation, right, to show positive in that meeting. Hey, which I said earlier, there's sometimes you have to make the decision, right, that work trumps the situation, and sometimes you have to make the decision, right, that home kind of trumps the situation, and really being a positive example in that. You know, I don't believe in that, whatever the saying is, like, you can have it all, or blah, 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 whatever that is, right?
Yeah,
Because
no, you can't.
I don't know
It's
what
not
that, I don't even really know what that means, but, you know, you can have what you want, right? And you have to find the situation that works for you and what you feel like you need. And also, it depends on the time in your life, right? As well as your kid's life. There's been certain times where I've been able to give work a little bit more, and there's been times where I've had to give home a little bit more, and that's okay, right? There's certain things that happen and, you know, situations that arise, but, you know, that's one thing I really feel like I try to be a positive example about, because that's something that's really important to me.
All right, I don't see Lydia. Is she?
She's not, someone else is gonna ask her a question.
Oh, okay, good, thank you.
In your experience, do you see a divide between women of different backgrounds? If so, what can we do as women to be allies and fight together for equality?
I mean, I think everybody's background has differences in it. I mean, if you want to, you can get really obvious with that question, right? But I think until you make a connection with the person and really understand who they are, I think that's key. I think that's key because we're all people. The connection matters. It's what's gonna help you find those. Everybody has commonalities and differences, and the connection's gonna help you find the commonality.
Yeah, I think women can be very critical of each other.
Yeah.
You know, which is sad, and so I think you have to, again, throw that to the side, and you just have to be curious. And ask those questions, and I know that for me, I used to be scared to do that, right? And say, well, why do you think that way, or what does that mean? You know, when you say you grew up that way, I don't understand, or all of that type of thing. And I found most people either share with you, or if they don't feel comfortable sharing, they'll say, hey, I don't feel comfortable telling you that. And that, you know, that's okay too. So again, we have to put that judgment to the side and just be curious about each other.
And support one another.
Great, to add to what the other's saying, get to know people and be curious about your own beliefs and your own feelings of why you see things a certain way, why you believe things a certain way, and be okay with challenging that and changing it. Being okay with being wrong, because we are all many different ways of wrong all the time. So, thank you, ladies, so much for your time. I have learned a lot, and I have enjoyed hearing your stories and the wisdom that you've been sharing, and I know that everyone else has as well. We encourage you to continue this conversation, continue to look for ways to support women. If you are a woman, look for ways to ask people for support. Seek out those people. I mean, just look around the room. I want you to look for all the men that are in this room. Okay? These are the men in this room, and there were others that could not come, who wanted to be here. But pay attention to these folks because they feel it's important.
Hey, Lisa?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So on that same vein, for the men in the room, I'm glad you guys brought that up. Is there any advice you would give us as men in assisting on this journey? Any feedback or suggestions of how we can assist? I wanted to put that out there since we have a few minutes.
Very good question.
Really good question.
Like I told my husband. And I'm on video. Just listen.
Yes.
There are I mean, I know men want to fix a lot of things, and that's how you guys are built, and we are grateful for that. But sometimes we just want you to listen, hear us out first. Because a lot of times, you know, I'm trying to tell, you know, a male something. I'm like, I'm not even finished. I'm going to tell you the whole thing. Like 5 more things I want to say. But I would say, you know, just listen. You know, the art of listening, and then fix it. But you know, just the listening part.
Absolutely.
I would say don't get freaked out by our emotion. Sometimes we just kind of gotta let it out, or are trying so hard to hold it together that it just kind of spews out in different ways.
And it doesn't always mean that we're, you know, like emotionally unstable or sad if we cry. Sometimes you're just real frustrated or you're pissed off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, let us kind of get that out and support us through that we don't, you know, have to feel like we always kind of have to hold it together. And, you know, maybe be that safe place, right? Where, hey, can I just walk in here and just get this out really quick, get my emotion out so that I can then kind of come back and, you know, be put together and all of that type of thing, you know, is nice to have.
I think knowing that and going into it, knowing that we're just different, we're built different, we're not supposed to be the same. And I think that part of the society has really put up the barrier. Let's all try to be the same. I don't want to be like you. I don't want to go to the man's club. So I think knowing that and that we are built differently and appreciating our perspective and knowing that you might learn something from that, you know, vice versa as well, I think is something that's good.
May I add something?
Sure.
It's very hard for me to sit over here and shut up and not say anything. But speaking as an ally, and also I'm glad you asked the question there because I jotted some things down some time ago. But 2 things I'd like to address that question. And I hope you all support me, so let me know if I'm off base, but I don't think I am. I think as an ally, one is be present and be available. I think as guys, sometimes our mannerisms don't allow us to be approachable. Sometimes we can have our doors shut, or we can always be seen to hang around with other guys. And so for a woman who may not feel comfortable and confident enough being in their own skin to be able to say, hey, let me just interrupt, let me just ask a question. Sometimes they don't feel comfortable because we don't appear to be available and accessible. But even in those moments when we are present, we're not present.
Right.
So if you're in a meeting, if you have a direct report, if you have a daughter, if you have a wife, if you have a mom, which probably everyone in here does to some degree, mentally be present. Don't check out. Don't be thinking about other things and then just, sure, right. And not really be involved in the conversation. So like Sandra said, listen, but actively and attentively listen. Those things really matter. The other thing I'd add to that is, or the other comment I have is, don't sugarcoat feedback. A lot of guys may tend to say, well, because she's a woman, I gotta be very careful about how I say things to her or how I share the information to her. She may cry, I think Jess or somebody said it earlier, she may be emotional and things of that nature. Forget all that. So my story, I have a very powerful mom, I have a very, very powerful wife, I have two very strong-minded young ladies as teenagers, as my daughters. I have a strong mother-in-law who lives with me. We don't talk baby talk. We don't talk women and men talk. We have real conversations. My dynamic partner in crime back there, Shelby Simmons, she'll tell you, we have some real hard conversations. That's a friend. But she's also a person who thinks and has ideas and has creativity. So we talk as such. So I think as guys, as allies, if we don't treat women as equals and that they do have a contributing role in this society, we're missing out on a lot of great opportunities. Just as a quick tidbit, a quick note, almost 90% of every household decision is made by a woman. So you think the car, the house itself, all your major appliances, your major purchasing decisions, those are made by women. Women own women own all of the awards across the board for all the education. They're more educated, you actually more educated than guys are globally. I can give you a bunch of stats and a bunch of numbers, but all I'm saying is, for the allies in the room, all 9 of us, I've counted. Don't let this stay in this room. Take it out, talk to your circles, take it out to what we talked about, the Boys Club, I heard that mentioned too. This is important. This is how business decisions are improved and enhanced by us being more engaged with our women partners.
Thank you for sharing that. So thank you everyone for your time today.